Hey everyone, Firegross here, and today I wanted to talk about why SpellSlinger still sucks really bad. I'm gonna try and keep this video on the shorter side today. There's a lot of stuff to talk about and I could easily sit here ranting for about an hour, but I'm gonna try my best to keep this video under 10 minutes. So over the past few weeks, I've seen a number of content creators come up with various takes on SpellSlinger Eye of Winter, and this has led to a lot of people exclaiming that basically SpellSlinger is still alive and healthy, that SpellSlinger is still really strong in actual fact, and that GGG was right to nerf it. Now, I was going to let this go and just kind of let the community figure this one out for themselves, but after reading these comments repeatedly on Reddit and YouTube every couple of days, I decided that something needed to be said. Now, there's nothing wrong with being smug, and there's nothing wrong with being wrong, but there is a bit of a problem when you're both smug and wrong, and especially when it's in favor of a narrative that leads GGG to balance the game incorrectly. However, I am someone who puts their money where their mouth is. I'm not just going to say people are wrong without showing you the math behind it, and so today I've prepared a small presentation where I'm basically going to show you why exactly SpellSlinger is so bad, and why all the people who you can see on my screen right now are dead wrong about the state of SpellSlinger. Now, before I get started, a small disclaimer which really needs to be pointed out. I'm going to be using Jungroan's PoB for Eye of Winter SpellSlinger, and I don't want anyone to get the idea that this is some kind of anti-Jungroan video. Jungroan's a really good content creator, and he's a really great human being. I have a lot of respect for him, and I think a lot of the work he does is very valuable for the community. In fact, the reason I'm using his PoB is because out of all the content creators who have done some kind of take on this build, I thought Jungroan's was the best take. It has, one of the most optimized PoBs. There aren't very many inefficient things or, things that I could criticize in the PoB, and there's no point trying to give a comparison where I'm holding up someone's PoB that is really inefficient and, poorly optimized and all that sort of stuff. So the reason we're actually using his PoB is because it's so well done, and because I feel like it makes the strongest case for SpellSlinger, rather than the fact that it's just an easy thing to pick on. So to start out, I'm going to talk a bit about why we're even using this PoB to begin with, why we're looking at Eye of Winter Low Life Occultist, and part of the reason for that is because it is the single best SpellSlinger build possible. It's the only build that really takes all of the penalties of SpellSlinger and then negates them effectively, and I'm going to spend a bit of time talking about the penalties of SpellSlinger so that you can see exactly how this works out. So the first penalty we're going to talk about is the fact that cooldown scaling artificially limits the hit rate. SpellSlinger hit rate is based on a 0.6 second cooldown, and that's lowered by approximately 70% via gem levels on SpellSlinger and then the helmet enchant, and that gets the cooldown, or the hit rate rather, down to about 0.35 seconds. So you can get approximately 3 hits of your SpellSlinger spells out every second. Now, for high cast speed spells such as Blade Blast, which has a cast speed of 0.5 seconds, this is equivalent to approximately 40% cast speed. This means that the hit rate that you're getting is significantly lower than the amount of cast speed you could usually build into a build. Now granted, you're not going to be casting a spell like Blade Blast specifically as fast as possible, but there are a lot of spells with low cooldowns that you would want to spam ideally to get the maximum amount of damage out, and being capped at effectively 40% cast speed is a huge penalty. On the other hand, for low cast speed spells such as Eye of Winter, right, which has a cast speed of 0.8 seconds at a baseline, right, this is equivalent to roughly 120% cast speed. So this is more than what you usually achieve in most builds. Most builds don't stack cast speed above 120%, so it's not really a limitation on the hit rate of spells such as Eye of Winter. So the second penalty is that SpellSlinger costs a support gem socket, and this ties in a little bit to what we just talked about, but for high cast speed spells such as Blade Blast, you're getting 40% cast speed, as I pointed out. Now this is weaker than a 2020 faster casting support, and faster casting support is not going to be the best in slot gem for a lot of these faster hit rate spells, right? So SpellSlinger is worth less than 1 support gem in that socket, which means it is a penalty. On the other hand, for Eye of Winter, SpellSlinger is granting approximately 120% cast speed, as we pointed out, and this means it's significantly stronger than a 2020 faster casting support, and it's actually significantly stronger than pretty much every other gem you could put in there, including Awakened gems that are level 6 with a 23 quality, hypothetically. So the final penalty that we're going to talk about is SpellSlinger costing mana reservation. Now, for an ideal Eye of Winter build, you'd be wanting to reserve Hatred and Zealotry, and then if you had mana left over, you would reserve things such as Precision, Clarity, Vitality, and Herald of Ice, although you typically wouldn't have the mana left over for that. When you bring SpellSlinger into the mix, however, you can't even reserve Hatred or Zealotry anymore, since most of your mana is reserved on your SpellSlinger skills. Now, when you're playing low-life builds, however, you completely circumvent this penalty entirely, right? You can reserve Hatred, Zealotry, and all of the Reservation effects that we listed. Now this of course means that the SpellSlinger penalty of not being able to have auras means absolutely nothing, since you have enough mana reservation and life reservation to just reserve all the auras you would normally want, as well as the additional ones such as the ones listed here, and even things such as Discipline in some cases. So what we have in front of us is the Jungroan PoB that I've selected to use for our comparison. I've changed the configs just a little bit so that we have projectile travel distance at 40 yards. The maximum is 60, so I've just picked 40 for both of the PoBs that we're going to be doing, since, you know, I guess that was an approximation. And it doesn't really matter what we pick, just as long as we pick the same distance for both PoBs. And I'm going to show you how to calculate the DPS of Eye of Winter. So the way you calculate it going off the PoB is you take the average hit and then you multiply it by the hit rate. Now, in this case, because Eye of Winter is being cast by SpellSlinger, you have to take the skill cooldown and work out the hit rate by dividing 1 by the skill cooldown. That gives us a hit rate of 2.77. Then you multiply that by the average hit, in this case 411,564, and then you multiply it by 4 because Eye of Winter is going to shoot out projectiles 4 times. That gives us approximately 4.5 or 4.6 million DPS. Now, I'm gonna now show you the other PoB that I've cooked up. So this is a self-cast assassin PoB that I cooked up in about 20 minutes before making this video. I'm going to include the PoBs for both this and the other PoB in the description below so you can check it out yourself. I tried to limit this to the same kind of budget that what Jungroan had for his build, so you don't have anything too special here. We're using a 1 mod Watcher's Eye, whereas Jung is using a 2 mod Watcher's Eye. We're both using Transcendent Flesh. We're both using, I believe it's 2 Awaken support gems. The gear's not really min-maxed. We're using a single influenced body armor. Now this is only going to cost you 2 to 3x, since you're going to have to apply prefixes can't be changed and just do a caster reroll with Harvest. The helm is a similar deal, you know, it's just basically ult spammed into power charges. And then you can multi-mod on resists if that's the way you want to go. You could easily find a better one on the trade site. So nothing special here. Then, you know, you have Badge of the Brotherhood, Void Batteries, nothing incredible there. Rare gloves, which are very, very underwhelming. You know, you could get way better gloves very easily, but I didn't want to go, you know, I didn't want to spend a lot of money. Replica Inya's Epiphany, nothing special there. Badge, Snake Pit, Replica Soul Tether. We have a really underwhelming ring. And then basically just Clusterjewels. I didn't pick the min-max Clusterjewels possible, so we just have a Unnerve Blind Clusterjewel, which I think is the same one that Jung's using. I think we're using the same projectile mediums off the top of my head, and then I'm using a Prismatic Art Blanketed Snow, 2 notable large Clusterjewel. Both PoBs are level 92, and yeah, so as you can see, nothing crazy. I haven't tried to inflate anything. I'm not trying to, you know, overinvest into this character or inflate it. We're also taking care to be resistance capped, you know, within reason. So you could easily get better gloves than this and save some resistances elsewhere. We're also making sure to stay within our attribute requirements. So, you know, where is it here? Sniper's Mark. Sniper's Mark is only level 14 in this PoB because we don't have the dex to take it even higher. So yeah, nothing is inflated here. There's no PoB warrior garbage going on. You know, this is pretty much all the same stuff. Projectile travel distance is set to 40, the same as Jungroan's. Enemy is a Shaper. So all the sort of stuff that you would expect. And now I'll just show you the DPS for comparison. So we're going to take our average hit of 572,897. We're going to multiply it by our new cast rate of 4.44, and then multiply it by 4, and we get over 10 million DPS here. Now, just for those people wondering, you know, I think some people might catch this out, and I thought it was worth mentioning. The mana cost here does appear to be too high for the hit rate and the mana regen. The thing that you have to remember is that because we're using SpellSlinger, we only pay the mana cost once every 2 casts. So if you actually figure out the amount of mana you're spending per second, it's within the amount of mana we're regenerating per second, so that's actually completely fine. There's nothing wrong going on there. I had to invest, you know, part of the build into being able to cast this stuff, so we're using inspiration support. We're also using a mana regen, mana cost, Cobalt Jewel, and then taking these nodes down here for some extra mana regeneration. So, you know, this build could have been even stronger if I was trying to inflate it, or if I was trying to beat PoB Warrior, but yeah. And so our DPS comes out to this. So here you can see a comparison of the two PoBs. Now, it does need to be said, these are not apples to apples comparisons. The SpellSlinger version does have a lot of quality of life improvements that can't be expressed on a spreadsheet, and I am going to point them out right now. So the SpellSlinger version has the occultist explosions, it's got malediction, it's also got a curse on hit effects, since I believe Jungroan was using, I think it was corrupted gloves off the top of my head with LE weakness. And that's on top of being able to cast Hydrosphere pretty much every attack, every time you trigger your Eye of Winter. So there are quality of life buffs that SpellSlinger has, but all that stuff is coming at the expense of a lot of movement speed. It's coming at the expense of more than, half the damage that you can potentially deal with this skill. And I think this comparison kind of makes a very good case for SpellSlinger being bad. There's no point saying that SpellSlinger is fine just because you can clear with it, right? Because the bottom line is that for literally every single build in the entire game, running the non-SpellSlinger version is just better, right? It does better DPS, and you can often fit more tankiness and more movement speed into the build. SpellSlinger costs way too much in order to work, and this is the best case scenario, right? I've used SpellSlinger's literal best skill and build in order to make this comparison, and it still turned out this lopsided, right? Imagine if I used pretty much any other skill in the game, the comparison is huge. There are some skills where using SelfCast versus SpellSlinger yields 4 times as much damage, in addition to still yielding higher tankiness and higher movement speed. So there's only one thing I can say to the people that think SpellSlinger is in a good spot.
SpellSlinger is fine CoPM. SpellSlinger is fine CoPM. SpellSlinger is fine CoPM. SpellSlinger is fine CoPM. SpellSlinger is fine.